bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
How you doing? Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah, today's Tuesday, May 17th. 138 days into the new year, 226 days left. We are live from a bunker in downtown Burbank, California. I'd like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black. For KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the Planet. I'm your so humble host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? Beautiful day here in Southern California. Tonight we have a very, very special guest. No stranger to the show, of course, because we have a very special presentation with Jon Rappoport. Imagination. Yeah. Makes you pause, doesn't it? If Jon wants to speak about imagination, we're all going to stop and listen tonight. And tomorrow night, Dr. Louis Torrey is here, modern-day Nostradamus, and we're going to talk about that, prophecies and predictions. And then, of course, Thursday night's another Fader night, and Jon Rappoport will be right back here with his No More Fake newsroom. Let's do this, man. Follow us on Twitter right now, at JChurchRadio, Facebook, and YouTube. Everything is follow, like, and subscribe. Just go to the website, do what you got to do, click on everything, get it done. You can also email throughout the show tonight, Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. Also very simple, just make it good so I'll read it. All right. Any questions or comments during the show for myself or for Jon Rappoport, just use hashtag F2BQ. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox. Come and hang out with all of us. Oh, man, last night, well, every night, but man, the amount of tweets. And I keep up, though, barely, but I do. And always remember to support the show. And that's how we do it here. We get it done with sponsors. That's right. This is a free show. You're listening to it for free. You're not going to some place, some dark, scary place where you've got to pay for everything. No, not here and not ever. Aight? But how do we do it? How do we make this show happen every single night for 3 hours with the best guests? How do we do it? We do it with sponsors. So support the show through our sponsors. Go and visit our sponsors. Listen to the commercials. Go and visit. Okay? That's all you got to do. Life Change Tea is getthetea.com. The banner is right there at Jimmy Church Radio. Go and do it. That's all you got to do. Make yourself healthier. I did my moringa juice today, eyedropper. Supposed to do 3 a day. I've done like 6. getthetea.com. All right, colostrum. Oh, go and do it. The special page is right there. All kinds of really cool deals. Ronnie's always got something going on for you guys. Use the promo code Jimmy. Get free shipping on your order. So you're going to get a great deal. You're going to improve your health. You're going to support the show. It's a win-win for everybody. Also, Studio Dome, that speaker package, stereo, TWS, true wireless Bluetooth technology. Stereo, the latest technology. $129 hard shell case. Everything that you need, power cables, everything is included. $129. It's got a retail price of $399. I don't know if you realize you're getting 2 full-range SBB2 speakers. You're getting 2 of those. And they wirelessly connect to each other, so you've got stereo. And it's a rockin' system. It sounds amazing. Go and do it right now. Promo code JCRTWS. The links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. All right, here we go. It's 5/17. Less than 2 weeks away. We will be in Joshua Tree, California for Contact in the Desert, June 3rd through the 6th. The links are right there. Go and get your tickets, hotels, and everything else, and all the information you need is on the website for Contact in the Desert. And then right after that, June 30th, we'll be in Roswell for the Roswell Festival, and the links are there for that as well. We'll be broadcasting from both Contact in the Desert and the Roswell Festival. Contact in the Desert, we are in the Lotus Room. Holds about, we could probably get about 100, 150 in that room. I think that's about what we did last year, packed it out. And, yeah, it's cool. It's a great facility. We'll be doing the same thing at the Roswell Festival. Okay, same thing. Broadcasting live that Friday night on location with all of their speakers, and we'll be interviewing everybody that night. And then the Awareness Life Expos right after that, Crown Plaza Hotel up in Sacramento, California, August 13th and the 14th. Again, links to all of the events are at jimmychurchradio.com. You just go over. It's right there. Appearances on the right-hand side. You can do everything that you need right there. We've made it easy for you. Okay, looking forward to seeing everybody out there. One of the cool things about conferences is, we broadcast every single night from this bunker. No windows, no people. I'm here alone. There's nobody in this room with me. That's why it's so quiet. It's just, that's it, right? But once in a while, every month or so, we get out and we're able to go and hang out with everybody. It's awesome. So just go and hang out with us. Let us know that there is a world out there. All right. Let's get the show cracking. Today, Enya is 55. Do you know? Did you know? First off, she lives in a castle in Ireland. on a lot of acres, and she has sold over 75 million records. And for a Celtic artist like her, that's a lot. And she's the biggest selling solo artist in Ireland's history. Of course, you've got U2, right? But no, solo artist. But she has never toured. That's what's crazy about Enya. And I don't know why, but she's never toured. Trent Reznor today is 51, King of Nolans. Singer Josh Homme of Queens of the Stone Age today is 43. Also Kings of Death Metal. Bill Paxton is 61. And today I was going through my Bill Paxton favorite films list that's burned into my brain. And you just have to stop and think. Bill was in Weird Science, one of the great films of all time, and we all know, he played the dickhead brother. But The Terminator, Predator 2, Apollo 13, Aliens, Twister, Thunderbirds, which I watched again last week. I love that movie. And True Lies. Dude. He was really good in that movie, Two Guns, too, if you guys haven't seen it. But really cool. Love Bill. On this day in history, 1970, on May 17th, Norwegian ethnologist Thor Heyerdahl. I was going to say Heyerdahl. It's been a while since I've heard his name in public. And a multinational crew set out from Morocco across the Atlantic Ocean in the Ra 2. Do you remember that? The famous papyrus sailing craft. It was the first time, 1970. You know, I'm like, 1970, I'm 6, 7 years old. It's the first time I had ever heard the word papyrus, right? The paper boat, as they called it. Crafted after an ancient Egyptian boat. And they wanted to prove that people from the Mediterranean, the Straits, you know, could cross the Atlantic Ocean. And you know what? The Ra 2 crossed the 4,000 miles of ocean to Barbados. It made it in 57 days. Barely. Remember, that boat was half sunk, but it made it. They made it. And that was on May 17, 1970. And it was one of those things, especially in that era of 1970, when you had 71, 72, you had Chariots of the Gods, and you had, pyramid power and all of the conscious movement that was kicking off back then. The Ra 2 was a big deal, and it proved that it could be done. And it was just part of that aura that was going on around the world at that time. But it was a really, really big deal. May 17th, 1970. Fate or fact, Canada and Denmark have been fighting over the uninhabited Hans Island by leaving each other bottles of alcohol and changing their flags since the 1930s. Now, Hans Island sits in between Greenland, which is, Denmark, and Canada. And there's a little piece of water there sitting right in the middle of it. The territorial waters is 12 miles. But it sits in the middle at the 22-mile mark, where it's 22 miles wide. So technically, it doesn't belong to either. Right? And so they've been going out there at this one spot it's uninhabited. It's just a rock, but pulling up the other guy's flag and plopping down a bottle of alcohol. It's funny. It's been friendly, and I don't think there's any reasons to. But it's been going on since the 1930s. Tonight, Jon Rappoport is here. We're going to be talking about imagination. Tomorrow night, Dr. Louis Turi. And, of course, he is the modern-day Nostradamus, and we're going to be talking about predictions and prophecies and all of that. It's one of the first times I think we've actually covered this on the show. Been wanting to do it for a long time, and Louis Turi's the guy to just do that. We'll be doing that tomorrow night. Now, last night I did that quote, Eleanor Roosevelt, great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, small minds discuss people. And tonight, John is going to be in here to discuss imagination. And imagination is so important, and it's something that is missing. And it's something that we lose. We have imagination. Now, John is going to be taking this to a whole nother level here in a few minutes. But my take on it is this. We all are born with nothing but imagination. That's what we have, right? And I remember, just crazy things. And I'm driving my daughter. I pick up my daughter from daycare. She's 3 years old, and she's in the back seat, in the baby seat. And we're driving up Ventura Boulevard, headed home. And she says to me from the back seat, she's 3, and I'm driving. She goes, Daddy, I want to open a restaurant in the ocean, and I want to serve burgers that are called Krabby Patties. I said, what? Yeah, and I want to do a secret sauce. I was like, what? And I'm driving the car, and I thought, what a crazy imagination. Man, I just want to be young again, That was my thought, and I didn't know at the time she was talking about SpongeBob. She was watching SpongeBob at daycare. I get that. But what hit me was imagination. where does it go? How do we let it go? And if some of the thinkers, especially modern day, but if you go back throughout time, those thinkers that had imagination and kept it their whole lives and weren't beaten down by the man to let go of imagination, where would we be? Where would we be? No Elvis. Oh, man. No internet, no telephones, no electricity, no cars, no planes. Without imagination to think outside the box. If you go back and you think about the things that Da Vinci did and drew and imagined and thought up, and if he was spanked and beat down and everything else, jailed, imprisoned, blasphemy, heresy, those thoughts, that imagination doesn't happen. It goes the same, not only with painters and artists and songwriters and musicians and guitar players, fine artists. That goes without question that you need and have to have and hang on to your imagination. You don't ever let it go. And some of the coolest things ever that moves me is when I'm walking down the road and I see the 70-year-old person wearing a tie-dye shirt, That is so cool. They haven't let go of it, right? But what happens? Why do we let go of it? And why do we allow it to be let goeth of? Now, before you say, Jimmy, what do you mean? I haven't let go of it. Well, okay, that's this audience. But there are some of you that will get what I'm saying. And not only that, but society in general. Imagination to the man is not a good thing. It's not. They don't want you to have imagination and creativity. They don't want you to try to figure out things on your own. They give you the solutions to everything. They give you the credit to buy your car so you could drive to work in the morning and pay taxes and drive back home, get some sleep, and wake up and do it all over again. And they make sure that you can get your food. They make sure that you get a little bit of TV at night to occupy your brain and then start it all over again. But they don't want you trying to figure out how to get out of that cycle, how to break the chains, break out of the box. They don't want that. It doesn't fit their reality. Their reality is they got to print money and they got to loan that money out, and that interest that is there is paid by you. That's it. That's the system. It's not any more complex than that. They print money, they go, they do the things that they have to do. Sure, infrastructure, roads, but the military, space programs, and other crazy things. You got to pay for the IRS itself. You got to pay for the NSA and the CIA and the FBI. Somebody's got to pay for it. We do. And so they print the money, interest, boom, taxes, pay the interest, taxes paid by us. The only way that happens is you get up in the morning and you go to work. And that's the reality. And they don't want you thinking outside of that. They don't want you to imagine things. So they feed you the falseness of, we've got you covered. We've got you covered. Just stay right here with us. Now, the people that are listening to this show, the Fadernauts, our family, you guys get that. But could you imagine? We were doing these numbers the other day. Let's call round numbers out. 350 million people in the United States, right? Okay, how many are retired? How many are children? How many aren't working? Okay, so you cut it up into thirds. Let's say we do it in thirds. So there's 150 million people in the United States working. Out of that 150 million, how many do you think would understand or accept the words that I'm saying right now? Nah, dude. like all of them, right? No, dude. Man, I go to football on the weekends. I've got my favorite baseball team. You know, I've got my bowling league, and I have freedom. No. No. Man, I own my own house. No, stop. You stopped being creative a long time ago. And I'm not here to offend a bunch of Cincinnati Bengals fans or Indianapolis Colts fans. That's not where I'm going with this. What I am saying is, somewhere, the dream of wanting to be an astronaut and dreaming up a new way of space flight and designing new shoes, coming up with the new idea. We all had inventions and things that we thought about growing up. We came home to our parents. I thought of an invention today. We all did it. Little boys, little girls, doesn't matter. Inventing, creating, thinking outside of the box, wanted to go out and just kick the world's ass and change things. And then somewhere, it stops. There are a few great thinkers and imaginers in our generation. One of them, the MJ-12 guy, Vannevar Bush, one of the most creative guys of all time. And back in 1945, because he thought outside of the box completely, he invented the very foundation for the web. 1945. Human-centered computing came from him in 1945, completely outside of the box. I talked about Alan Turing, another computer guy, but completely outside of the box. Invented the Turing machine. We all know his story. Outside of the box. How about George Orwell? As creative and as an imaginative as and to this day, we still haven't swallowed and accepted the warnings that he gave us about Big Brother. And we're right in the middle of it. Right now, it all came to pass. But just think if George Orwell gave up on that and decided to go sell insurance. And there's nothing wrong with selling insurance. But what I mean is, just imagine if he did do that. Imagine. It is so critical for all of us, and just for somebody that isn't with us, have a little conversation with them. You know, just throw it out there. Hey, man, did you invent something when you were little? Did you like to draw when you were little? Do you still draw? No. Oh, when's the last time you thought of an invention? Something that was going to change the world. Well, I did when I was a kid, but I haven't lately. Just throw it out there. Just put that thought in their brain. So just maybe they may want to go out there and change the world again and at least get into that mindset. Because people that act like that and walk like that and talk like that are beautiful people. They're great. You can see the sparkle in their eye. They walk around with it, and you can tell. You can tell. And those are the people that you want to hang out with. And if you think like that, people want to hang out with you. Think about that. Imagination. It's just an amazing, amazing thing. It's a thing. And it's real. And it bums me out. You know, when it just bums me out when I just see people that have let it go. There's nothing more of a bummer when you hear somebody say, I coulda, woulda, shoulda, because I had this thing once, and I just, and it was pretty cool, but then, I just gave up on it, and now I'm stuck here, and I hate myself. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Never let go of it. Ever, ever, ever. Don't ever let go of imagination. Whatever it is that stirs your soul, continue. Do it. If you want to host a show like this, and you've always wanted to do it, do you want to be 70 years old going, man, I should? And you've heard this story a million times, but it's so true. Somebody that is 70 years old and is telling you, dude, get off your ass and go and do it. It's coming from somebody that gave up. Yeah. And they wish, and you can't turn back the clock. Never, ever lose sight of that. Just don't do it. Be young, be stupid, tell jokes, laugh. Look at life like that every single day, like it's the middle of the summer, and you just want to go out there and get her done. And then, if we all do that, slowly but surely, we beat the man. There is a way. If you go back and you look at guys like Thomas Jefferson and Washington and Ben Franklin, those dudes had imagination. And what they wanted for us in this country was the freedoms of everything, of education and freedoms of speech and all of the issues with the big government and everything else. All they wanted was freedom of thought, freedom to do what you want. You want to work. You don't want to work, don't work. You want to go to church, go to church. Don't want to go to church, don't go to church. You want to go to school, go to school. You don't want to go to school, don't. But the opportunities were here to be creative and create. And it ran really, really well for a long time. All of the great inventions, now, it's funny. Some of that's disinfo. But a lot of the greatness came right out of the United States because of those free thinkers. And it's easy to point fingers at the Wright brothers, but it's everything around the Wright brothers and the guys that were trying to fly right before the Wright brothers. The race for electricity with Tesla and Edison, and the race for radio, and the race for telegraphs, and the race for automobiles, and traffic lights, and light bulbs, and just everything. And they all came out of here because we had imagination. We had it. Walt Disney had it in spades. Tonight, Jon Rappoport is going to discuss this at a whole nother level. I'm a doofus. But one thing is, I'm 52 years old. And I have not, and I still won't. Every day, Rita tells me I'm a kid. And when she does, and I act like a kid, and when she does, I know I'm doing the right thing. And you need your husband or wife to tell you those exact words, because then you know you're doing it right. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Jon Rappoport and the Imagination Presentation. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. We'll be back with Jon Rappoport right after this. Stay with us.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I got to tell you, it was a relief. National Tax Experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. It doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil 3-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444. Or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
Health in America is becoming a top priority. Or maybe I should say, good health in the world is becoming a top priority. Maintaining a healthy body can be challenging. How about letting Life Change Tea help you? Our tea you make, you drink, and you benefit. Our unique blend of 8 different herbs helps you maintain good digestion, a healthy colon, and detoxes harmful toxins and parasites out of your body. And you know what? It tastes great. If you're wanting a change, a life change when it comes to health, log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Or you can call us at 928-308-0408. That's 928-308-0408. When you log on to our mobile-friendly website, you can read all the numerous testimonies of how Life Change Tea has helped so many people. We carry many, many beneficial products that help your health and keep you on track. Getthetea.com. Kind of gets in your head, doesn't it? Getthetea.com.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Chase Kletsky with Fate Magazine Radio, and you're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station where the Fade-or-Nots rock.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your so humble host, Jimmy Church, who has not lost his imagination. I carry it around in my pocket. My pockets ain't empty. Tomorrow night, Dr. Louis Turi is here. He's got an imagination. Prophetizing. Nostradamus. Dr. Louis Turi tomorrow night. But tonight, it's Jon Rappoport. He is a graduate of Amherst College, where he got his BA in philosophy, and has worked as a freelance investigative reporter for over 30 years. And everybody knows in 1982, the LA Weekly submitted his name for a Pulitzer Prize. But now he's here. He's with us, sharing on Fade to Black. His website is nomorefakenews.com. No stranger to this audience. Welcome back, Jon. How are you?
Great. Good to be here, Jimmy. Thank you.
You still got your pockets full of imagination, young man?
I do indeed. I do indeed.
I don't know if you just heard the things that I had to say leading into this, but I'm the comedian that warms up the sitcom audience over at the Lopez Tonight Show, and so anyway, but imagination is such a heavy word. And it's one that, we don't even know what imagination is when we have it, right? We're too young to know what a definition is like that. And we have it in spades, And I want to start things off tonight because this is going to be a very wide and broad and deep and heavy and at times fun conversation. But I want to start with this, Jon. What's your definition of imagination?
Well, I would say it's conceiving of things that don't yet exist, but could exist. Reality is what is there in front of us. And so at a certain age, we learn, we're taught, this is it. This is the world. This is the way it is. And basically, you need to fit yourself into it.
When I was graduating high school, and we were gathered, the seniors, and it was like a week before graduation, and they gather all of the seniors in the auditorium, and the principal gets up and gives this big speech, congratulations, blah, 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 blah. And he says, this was when reality hit me, man. He goes, some of you are going to graduate and go on to college. Some of you in this room, after graduation, are going to work for the rest of your life. Right? And I was sitting there, and that was like a sledgehammer in the middle of the forehead, man. I can't remember anything else he said, but I remember those words, right? And I just thought to myself, what a frightening, scary thought. There was no humor to it. It was just a very direct thing, but that was the first dose of reality for everybody in that auditorium. I'm sure most were hit the same way. There were some that didn't get it, but I certainly did. And that's a strange thing. Work for the rest of your life.
It is.
Wow, it's heavy.
Well, I'll tell you a little story. When I was 11, all I wanted to do was play baseball. That was it. I was going to be a baseball player and hopefully, end up in the major leagues. So I was part of a team in our town that entered some sort of tournament, state tournament in New York. And we wound up in the finals of that tournament in Niagara Falls. We took a long bus ride from New York City all the way up near the Canadian border, and we stayed in some kind of a gymnasium where it was kind of a dormitory, makeshift dormitory. And we played a couple of games and we lost in the finals. And then we had to pile on to a bus all the way back to New York. So I ran into a store. I don't remember what it was, but it had a book rack. And I just looked around and I saw, okay, there's this book called The Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury. I sort of had heard of him a little bit. I snatched the book. I paid for it. I ran back, got on the bus because I figured, on this ride, I have to read. Otherwise, I'll be bored out of my skull. And I started to read the short stories in that book. And two things basically occurred to me on the way home. One was there was a chance that I wasn't going to, take the mound for the New York Yankees. And two, there were worlds without end, because I had just been reading about them in the poetic prose of Ray Bradbury, a great writer, who, by the way, all of his life commented here and there about the power of imagination. And so when I got off that bus at age 11, my life was totally changed because I said to myself, whatever this means, this book, whatever is there in it, whether we're talking about other planets, we're talking about life out in the galaxy, the things that still inspire more and more and more people today, this is somehow wound up with imagination, whatever the word was that I used for myself at the time. And this is where I've got to go somehow, some way. And that was really, for me, the beginning of the rest of my life at 11 years old. So it had a dramatic impact.
Yes, certainly. And did you stumble along the way? In other words, did you ever give up imagination for a brief period and change course and start to mold and status quo yourself and then pull yourself back out of it?
Yeah.
You took a glimpse, you know what I mean? Went to the edge of the cliff and looked into the abyss?
I looked into the abyss. In 1959, I was taking a year off from college, and was talking with my parents about this and that. And of course, they were a bit upset. Why didn't he just go all the way through? And the subject of, what are you going to do for the rest of your life came up. And they suggested that I should be a lawyer because even at a young age, I could get up in front of people and talk. I had done a lot of that in one way or another all the way through high school, and I was good at it, and I enjoyed it. It was, for me, it was like a walk in the park, and something about it was very exciting. And so I thought, yeah, I could get up in a courtroom and I could be a lawyer. And so once I graduate from college, I go to law school and I'll get a degree. And I began to think about what the curriculum would be like and so on and so forth. And my parents and I came to an understanding that that was where I was going to go. And they were ecstatic. And I was happy in a way that the whole thing had been resolved. And by the way, when I was taking time off from college, I was writing fiction. I was just writing and writing and writing and writing. And I thought, okay, so I'm going to be a lawyer. And for about a week, I chewed on that. And the more I chewed on it, the more horrible I felt. I was really looking into the abyss of the rest of my life where, as far as I was concerned, there would be no more imagination. There would be no more inspiration for the unknown, the unexplored, the uncreated. And by the end of the week, I told my parents, I said, I can't do it. I just can't do it. This is like suicide for me to do this, And that was the one period, the 1 week where I tried to get out of it. I tried to go back into reality as it is. And it just felt so horrendous to me that I never went back again.
Yeah, it only happened to me it was a little longer. But I did the same thing in that I was in the music business and playing guitar, and I was an artist, and imagination was the center of my universe, and I was happy and found my bliss, and everything was great. And then, for one reason or another, I went back to Memphis, and I decided to give up on this life here in Los Angeles. And so I go back and to live with my parents, and I'm in my mid-20s. And my mom and dad sat me down and said, okay, now look. And I know my brothers are probably listening right now, and they listen to the show. And anyway, and so they give me the big sit down. Okay, you're our son. You're always welcome. Here it is. It's all good. But now it's time to take life serious. And you've got to go out and you've got to get a real job and you got to give up this music thing and you've got to do, And so I went and got a job at a print shop, big one in downtown Memphis, and still kind of doing art, but I was working in a dark room stripping. And if you know the printing business, you know what stripping is,
yeah.
And, film and working. And that's it, man. I put on a tie every day and went in and worked at this Christian print shop. And I did that for about 3 or 4 months. And I did that downward spiral, just like it was ripping me apart. It was killing me. And then, thankfully, I got fired. And I fired / quit, I should say. Got in a fight with the boss one day, and it didn't matter. But it was like, you're fired. Oh, yeah, I quit. Or I quit. Oh, yeah, well, you're fired. One of those, parting of the ways. And I went right back to the music business. I went full on into it and got my feet back on the ground. But I did, man. I went to the edge and took a look. And I didn't dig it. I didn't dig it at all. And when you rip somebody's bliss away from them, that's that will kill somebody. That's a soul killer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
And that's I think that's actually kind of a weird, but let's start off on a dark note, right?
Yeah, well, I think that your audience, for example, people come on and they talk about realities that are beyond this one in one way or another. That's what's happening. And so I just want people to understand that when they hear this, the kind of realities that are presented, their imagination swings into gear immediately, whether they know it or not.
Right.
Because they're now reaching out to the beyond, to the unknown, to what has not already been solidified and, made part of this everyday world that we live in. It's something else. It's beyond that. And what stimulates people, what hooks them in, what attracts them, what magnetizes them, it's really, it's the information, of course, but it's also their own imagination. And without that, there would be nothing. We would be living on a dead sphere.
We would be in the dark ages. And the there's a movie, John, that you should check out, subtitled. It's called "It's Hard to Be a God." All right, I'm going to announce this to the audience right now. It's Hard to Be a God. It's a semi-new film, but it took 15 years to make, and it's Russian. And I'm going to give it to you very simply. It's about a planet that we here on Earth, we send 40 scientists to, because we know that it's very similar to Earth. So we go there to study and hopefully kickstart their civilization, because they are stuck in like our dark ages, like the year 600, right? So that's the idea. And they get there and they find out that they don't want it. They kill thinkers, they kill people with imagination, dead, right? They don't want to move forward. They are happy with farting on each other, and literally and figuratively, and not moving forward. They wanted all imagination and creativity and invention non-existent. No colleges, no schools, no nothing. You just are. And it's a frightening film to watch, but it's also a possibility that's where we could have been stuck in the dark ages. If anybody wants any questions about what would happen if creativity and thinking and that, look what happened when Rome pulled out of the United Kingdom. Man, that was a bad day in Black Rock, if you think about it, because that was it. It was all gone, and nobody had the ability to get out. They were stuck there. And that's where we would be today if we didn't have, all of that imagination from the past. And I wanted to ask you this question for a couple of years now. You have a list. You're a thinker. You have a list of good imaginers, if you can enjoy the pun, throughout history. Who do you look up to that just had the best imagination?
Well, I would always go to the artists. I would go to the painters, the writers, playwrights, musicians, and so on. I have my personal favorites, but if people want to jump into some of the heaviest and most interesting science fiction they've ever read, try the novel called A Voyage to Arcturus by David Lindsay, spelled Lindsay. It's one of these British, he was actually the forerunner of this kind of science fiction in the early 20th century in England, and a lot of other writers, C.S. Lewis, jumped on board, and kind of H.G. Wells tended to copy his pattern, which was it starts off in England, sometimes in a drawing room, a conversation among gentlemen. What would happen if we could leave this reality and go somewhere else? And then, it happens. It happens for a few of these people, and they go to a world or worlds that are so baffling and surprising and engrossing. It's at once an imaginative journey and a metaphysical journey of exploration into existence itself. I've read the book twice.
Yeah, I read it too. What always hit me with that, I know I just cut you off, but I wanted to get this thought, was philosophy. And he was able to get the philosophical undertones throughout without losing sight of, other worlds and the fantastical too.
Yeah, that would be right up there for me. But of course, painters, I've always had tremendous admiration for, the Dutch Renaissance painters, Vermeer, and much later on, the French Impressionists, Monet, and so forth. I could, rattle off a whole list. But the thing about it to me was there was some sort of a basic dissatisfaction, which we all share, with presenting things as they actually are over and over and over again. We already know, what this looks like and what it seems like. And as you get older, you see the same thing repeating itself many times. You can predict in certain situations what's going to happen. It's the artists who have that dissatisfaction who say, let me show you something else. Let me give you something else, And there it is. All of a sudden, you're looking at a different reality. And you're looking at a painting. You're looking at what somebody has given you as another possibility. And to me, this is what's missing from education. And it can't be supplied in any kind of a system or a formula.
No, it needs to be encouraged.
Exactly. And the teacher has to be someone who is himself or herself inspired by imagination so that electric spark, can be transmitted to the students.
That's it.
And, I once taught school in a little private school in New York where the kids were all shipped in from other schools where they hadn't done well, and it was very difficult teaching anything for several reasons. But fortunately, we were close to the Metropolitan Museums, and so I used to just take them over there. We would walk around looking at paintings, and something would happen to a few of the kids. They would begin to, oh, wow, look at that, look at this, look at that. Because one of the things that tends to be true about a lot of kids who don't fit into school is they're living in their imagination. And they can't hook that up with what's happening in the classroom. They're somewhere else, and they don't have an outlet. So they need to see, actually, since the dawn of time on this planet, that there have been people who lived that way too. Not just artists, but scientists, inventors, the people, as you say, that took us out of the year 600 and brought us to where we are today. Reality is invented by imagination. That's where it comes from.
With solving an issue, that isn't necessarily the same thing as imagination, but you can use imagination to solve an issue, if you understand what I'm saying. And with that, even that amount of creativity sometimes, when you go to solve an issue, it could be anything. It could be a number thing. It could be insurance. You're in your job. You're doing but even that part of creativity is stifled. And when that happens over and over again, eventually, most just give up and they don't want to take chances anymore.
That's where this society, unfortunately, is heading, because, we're a highly technological society. And so even though we see new gizmos and machinery coming online all the time, the general pattern is more and more toward huge organizations, whether it's government corporations and so forth, that are running things, and people are supposed to fit into slots and behave as if they were machines. This is your job. These are your tasks. This is what you do, exactly as you say. Cross out imagination, because that's not what we're doing here. This is what we're doing. Learn it, use it, and just show up, and everything will be, okay. So, unfortunately, that's where we're going, and the counter to that is the revolution. The revolution, to me, is imagination. This is what people who are on the leading edge are really working with. And yes, you can solve problems, and sometimes it doesn't look like you're using imagination, but you actually are. You're getting out ahead of the problem to the answer that makes the problem dissolve or go away. It doesn't exist, and that's what all really great inventors do. They look at a bunch of problems and they say, yes, but, I don't want to just diddle around and solve this and then that and then this. There's got to be some new hypothesis or new invention or new technology that will make all of this just go away and extinct, and will make a leap ahead. And they figure it out and they do it. And then everything takes off in a different direction.
What do you think? We're going to hit a break here in about 2 minutes. But I have to ask this. Do you think we've gotten into this gradually since 1776, and here we are? I'm speaking of the United States, and here we are today. Or do you think this is kind of come on in the latter half of this century, 1950s and forward, as technology started to grab hold? The reason why I ask is because it seems like up until then, to the dawn of the jet age, creativity and imagination was the key of life, and that was the rule, and everything was new and fresh, and things were just getting invented, and flying cars were the future. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden it stopped. Or am I wrong in that? Do you think it was a more gradual ramp up to where we are today?
Well, I think it was both, but I agree with you that there was definitely an acceleration of the loss of imagination since maybe the end of World War II, or maybe a little bit before then. I'll tell you a story about Long Beach and how I used to go down there and what I felt when I first came out to LA and lived there, because I could still feel that spirit of innovation and imagination when I would drive through that town, and I'll explain why. But
well, let's go. Well, let's do. I'm going to stop you right there. Let's take our break right there, and then we're going to pick up exactly right there when we come back after the break. It's a good place to stop. Our guest tonight's Jon Rappoport. This is the Imagination Presentation on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, and this is Fade to Black. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. John's website, the best, nomorefakenews.com. We'll be right back.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
What would your life be like if you woke up each morning with new vitality, feeling better than you have in years, and you noticed a difference in your sleeping patterns, blood sugar levels, and had a sense of well-being overall? There's something that is changing thousands of people's lives, and you could be one of them. It's called Heart and Body Extract. Sharon Harris, co-creator of Heart and Body Extract, talks about the positive effects of this product.
What happens with the formula Heart and Body Extract is it's giving the body the necessary vitamins, minerals, amino acids, enzymes, and phytonutrients so the body will heal itself. And yes, the body does have the ability to balance blood pressure, balance cholesterol, clean and unclog the arteries. It can also work on balancing the circulation for diabetics. So the body is an amazing thing. It simply needs some help so it has the tools to heal itself.
To order your 2-month supply, call now toll-free 866-295-5305. Order online at hbextract.com.
Imagine no longer being tied down to your computer, but having the freedom to take live talk radio with you anywhere you go. TalkStream Live introduces our first ever iPhone application. The talk shows you follow now follow you, and your iPhone is now the fastest and easiest way to stay connected to the best talk radio on the internet. Let TalkStream Live transform the way you listen to radio. Listen to live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mobile talk radio from TalkStream Live. Now available in the iTunes App Store.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. Yes. We're of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And I'm Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. And you're listening to Jimmy Church. The Revolution.
What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring 2 Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hardshell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The 2 full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129, and use the promo code JCRTWS, and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to JimmyChurchRadio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Tepe.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
All right, welcome back to Fade to Black. I'm your so humble host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, a very special presentation with Jon Rappoport, Imagination. Tomorrow night, Dr. Louis Torrey is going to be here. Prophecy, Nostradamus, all that. Thursday night's Fader night. John will be back with us with his starting to become a pretty famous little segment of the show, his No More Fake Newsroom. All right. So, John, right before the break, you wanted to share with us what happened in Long Beach. What year was that?
I'm going to say 1963.
Okay.
And I would drive through that town, and I would see airports, landing strips, aerospace. It all had to do with flight, space, travel, the beginnings, the early stages, the time when you had tremendous enthusiasm in California especially, and in other places, for advanced flight and getting off the planet. And these were people who still had enough imagination to dream about what could happen if we did it. It was all bound up in early science fiction as well, but it was now being translated into technology. And when I drove those streets, I was back in the 1950s, the 1940s, even the 1930s. I mean, it was palpable. You could feel the energy that still existed, even though it was kind of on a downslide at the time. It was moving into something else, a different vibe, you might say. But the early energy, the early imagination, the early thought forms, if you will, were still floating in the air. You could feel them. You could sense them. You could get that hit of what it was like when the whole pioneering effort around flight and space flight was a new, fresh, fantastic thing. And there's no doubt that when people who worked in those places got up in the morning, they were just on fire to get to work because they were doing great things. That's the way they saw it. That's the way they dreamed it. That's the way they were working at it. And it was there. It was there in the physical feeling of the place still. It still existed. So one of the things I'm saying about imagination is that when it takes shape, whether it's art, whether it's science, technology, whatever it is, when it's real, it's genuine, and it has that creative force behind it, it flows out into the physical world. It is not just in the pages of a book. It's not just in your skull. It's there, and people can be inspired by it still on. But the society itself seems to be heading in a different direction. This is a society of systems, of people who are being trained to act as if they are androids. And the revolution is all about reversing that.
Am I being too simple when I say that the reality that most of the country lives in the working class, that reality is as simple as all they want you to worry about, and they make that reality easy for you. They give you a loan to buy a car so you could drive to work and pay your taxes, drive back home, pick up some groceries, feed the family, go to sleep, and do it all over again so they can print the money to run the country and get charged interest on that. And then the taxes that we are set up with, that we are paying every day, pays the interest on those loans. It's really that simple. The machine is more complex than that, but the reality is if they can get you to do just that, then their machine runs. Is it really as simple as that?
Yeah, I think it is. Because it doesn't have to be complicated at the core. All it takes is whatever they can do to make people just see the pattern. I do this, then I do this, then I do that, and then I get this. And if I keep doing that, I'll keep getting it, and then I'll live for the rest of my life. And what else is there? There is nothing else.
And imagination is the wrench that gets in between the cog and the machine breaks down.
You bet. It gets in there and it does something else. And I'm sure that 99.99% of your listeners have experienced that in one way or another. Not just briefly, but in a transformative way. There's a moment in their life when they see that. You know, I'm attracted to this. This is exciting. This is big space. This is the unknown. This is stuff that couldn't be true, but it is. All that is stimulating the imagination to the nth degree. And then you look back at the way, you know, this reality operates now, and you say, well, you know, I'm not buying that. That's the last thing I'm going to buy because I know what the opposite feels like. And what's the matter with everybody else who doesn't feel that way? That's a make-break point. That's where somebody leaves the consensus, leaves the status quo and says, no, that's an illusion. That's the illusion that this is all there is.
Do you know, status quo is something that we all speak about quite often, and I don't believe it is a word that you can use in Scrabble, right? Okay, it's not in the Scrabble dictionary. If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But it is something that is used, and it's an important. I think it's more of a term than it is, words. Right? It's a term. But anyway, what is your definition of status quo? Because you know what? You could probably not even look it up in the dictionary. Isn't that strange?
Yeah, it is. Things as they are and continue to be. The way it is, what is expected of you, what is expected of everybody.
I'm going to see if there is a... okay. It is in Webster's. The existing state of affairs, especially regarding social or political issues. Yeah. Even though it's a term because it's two words. Like I said, it's not in the Scrabble dictionary because I've tried to use it, by the way. So.
And you got rejected.
Yeah, I thought I was being smart using a Q on a triple word score. But yeah. And so as we define status quo and their reality, I'm talking about them, not us. What is it for them that is the status quo reality that they want us to live in? What is it, and why the ambition, and why trying to force us into it? Because it is certainly from our birth, you're trying to put a round peg or square peg into the wrong hole. And you're forcing us to conform out of what we are born with, which is imagination.
Sure. Look at the issue of how does a baby learn to speak the language? And you've got these academic linguists and all sorts of people in that arena that put out these fancy theories and so on about how that happens and this and that and whatever. But when you come right down to it, there is no status quo explanation for that. It happens by leaps and bounds. And anyone who's followed a child through that process sees that the child suddenly makes connections, makes leaps, understands things, the difference between a phrase and a sentence, the difference, a word suddenly appears in the child's vocabulary. Just the other day, a friend of ours with their child, we were outside a restaurant, and she and I were looking for her father. And she thought he was sitting in the car, and he wasn't there. And she turned and looked at me. She's now, I think, just three. And she said, "He's disappeared." Like, where did that come from? I mean, this is not a word that anybody ever heard her say before. And she said it very straight out. It wasn't, no question. He's disappeared. This is, the state of consciousness of each person. That imagination is working. It's pulling things in from all sorts of levels of consciousness and space and conversations and wherever things are happening, and it's reforming them and it's fitting pieces together. And this is not something that, hard science is going to be able to explain. But society, the people who run society, they want it to operate as if everything were mechanistic, as if the atoms are just moving in their brain and everything spools out and it's all just, A through Z and that's it. And then you get buried and that's the end. Because it's easier to control that. that is something that people who run things feel, okay, we can control. So that's what we have to make everybody into, because if we don't control everybody and everything, then who knows what might happen. We don't know. That's the unpredictable. That's what we don't want. That's what we're afraid of. That's what we have to guard against, because if every individual grew up with his or her imagination completely intact, and not just as a little toy that you play with now and then, but as a force, a powerful force that is the spark that creates new reality. If every person grew up with that intact and realized it and knew it, this world would be completely transformed and be uncontrollable, completely uncontrollable from above.
I've got to jump in, because what you just said, and this was just tweeted out from Jacob. Check this out. He says, I'm going to paraphrase here. Do aliens have imagination? They cross space, and they must have imagination to do that. That's pretty interesting, and it goes exactly with what you're saying right there. If we didn't stop imagination, we would be uncontrollable. And going back to your comments about Long Beach and space, and imagination was running loose in the streets. It's an interesting question.
It is an interesting question, and I think there's no question about the answer. I mean, sure, if you're going to traverse light years in space, then you've got some kind of imagination. And to me, it's very interesting to track through science fiction and then through accounts of people who have had encounters and so on and so forth. If you go back in history, you see the way the reports and the fiction change the picture of what an alien is. There are periods of time during which it was as if, well, these people are just simply kind of biological machines automatically flying these ships, and they have no life really in them whatsoever, and they're all kind of like cartoons. And then that becomes more sophisticated. People begin to, well, wait a minute, is that it? Is that all we're talking about here? Or are we talking about something more? And this is one of I think, the great debates in the universe of investigation into UFOs. Who are we talking about here? And I know some people say, well, there are 6 different races and this and that. I don't buy that as, the final answer. We don't know all the answers here. But this is part of the great debate, because we're trying to figure out what is in the consciousness of these aliens. And I would say that for the most part, if you look at accounts, you see no mention of imagination. Very little. You find it occasionally in fiction. I can remember some stories that I've read where, the authors have said, wait a minute, why can't these people have creativity and imagination? Why can't they be independent? Why can't they be unique? Do they all have to be, out of the same mold? And I think this says something about us. To the degree that we have imagination, we begin to see, boy, we're just at the beginning of this exploration and investigation. There's all kinds of things that we haven't even conceived of yet that could be going on in deep space.
And if I had my choice, right, I got 2 dinners I can go to, right, in the same restaurant. Table of 8 people to my left, table of 8 people to the right. Table of 8 people to the left are wondering if we are alone or not alone in the universe. And that's the conversation that is going to happen at this table, right, to my left. And then off to the right is the table full of skeptics. Life is nothing, right?
Yeah, right.
Magic is dumb. We know how tricks are done. It's stupid. We are alone. Life is, we can explain everything. Now, which table are you going to go and sit down and hang out at? Right? You're going to, it's a very obvious thing. You want somebody whose mind is, that's what you want. You don't want to go and sit with people whose brains and imagination and creativity is closed off because they don't want to go there. They don't want to go there. They don't want to question. They don't want to imagine. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I have. I absolutely do. Sure. I've been trapped in many of those conversations on the bad table.
Yeah,
I think everybody has. That's what we're trying to get away from, is those bad tables where you look around and you say, well, either I'm completely crazy or all of them are. And, eventually most of us come to realize that it's not us, it's them. That's the way the world now tends to present itself, and the people who run it, they want it to be bereft of imagination, because that, as I said before, that's a threat. That's something that they feel like they can't control. And when, or if, you began to do a different form of education for the young, a radically different form of education where you encouraged imagination on every front and you put no limits on where it could go, or even maybe more important, what it could achieve, now you would be having a completely different conversation at a completely different table in a completely different society in a completely different world, because and I keep emphasizing this when I write about imagination, this is not just a toy or a plaything. This is not just something that children entertain themselves with until they reach the so-called age of consent. No. Imagination creates reality. So what reality do you want to create? What future do you want to create? What is that thing that you want to imagine that you have kept away, secretly in a vault, that is still there because that's the thing that really stimulates your imagination? That's the future you want. That's what you would really do, quote, if you could. Well, in a society where that was understood as the basis of everything, young children would be encouraged to see that as not just a toy, but as the most powerful force there is, their own imagination, because with it, they can create new reality, new future. Now you're really talking.
You know what's, I know this may sound primitive, but Saturday morning cartoons, right? Mm-hmm. Big part of our lives. Big part of your life growing up?
It was radio for me on Saturday.
Oh, see, when you said 1963 in Long Beach, I was born in 1963. So you were driving. Okay. Well, but they don't have Saturday morning cartoons anymore. Mm. And if you think about that huge part of society from 1960 or just before that, all the way through, the 1980s. That's what, 2 generations, right, of children that grew up watching and imagining a whole nother world out there through Saturday morning cartoons and whatever, but that's been removed. It's like I don't get that. They're just trying to stifle it all down in one big, one big brush, one broad stroke of the pen. And with that, at the same time, I have to ask you, fluoridation, do you think that is helping or certainly assisting, or is part of the plan of dumbing us down?
Unfortunately, I think it is, because we're talking about lowered IQ, a sedative effect, and this is just one of the chemicals that we could be talking about, but it's a major one. So sure, how do you chemically cut off a person from their own imagination? that would be a scientific enterprise. And it wouldn't be, of course, framed in those terms, but that's really what's going on. That is really what's going on. So, yes. And when I was a kid, Saturday morning radio had a show called Let's Pretend.
Right.
And they had, fantastical stories, one new one every week. Well, if I wasn't out playing baseball, I was listening to that show, glued to the radio and imagining everything to the hilt. Well, that kind of thing sticks. You can't get rid of that so easily, no matter what's going on. You always remember that because of the thrill. You can't just say, well, I've had a lot of thrills, but now it's time to get sober and mechanical and live that kind of life. No, that stuff stays with you forever. It's always there. And so I think, as you say, with the cartoons and with other imaginative kinds of shows, whether it was radio or television or film, whatever, countless numbers of people, starting as children, were inspired to realize that they had this energy of imagination and that it was the most exciting thing possible. How are you going to beat that? You can't beat that. You cannot beat that. So even with all the means and so forth to try to dumb down everybody, it's there. It's always going to be there. The question is, do you want to deploy it yourself, your own unique imagination, or do you want to just leave it on the shelf and, live an ordinary life?
I'm reading this quote here. Fluoride depletes the brain power and saps the strength of generations of American children, end quote. Dr. Charles Bett. Man, wow. That's...
Yeah. Huh?
Yeah, it's just scary. And it reminds me of, that famous quote in Stanley Kubrick, right? How I Learned to Love the Bomb. And,
yeah.
And, I'm trying to think of the general's, what was that general's name? Mandrake.
Jack D. Ripper.
Yeah, Jack D. Ripper. All right, let's take a break right there. It's a good place to do it. Jon Rappoport, the Imagination Presentation. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. Yeah, we've got a lot more further to go. I'll be right back.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Do you know what's in your body soap? Well, I didn't know the answer until about 5 years ago when I looked at the label of my soap and was shocked to see all the chemicals. For my entire life, I had been assaulting the largest organ of my body, my skin, and to think my children were using it too. Well, a lot has changed since then. Today, my family and I operate Stone City Farms, where we make and sell all-natural goat milk soap using fresh goat milk from goats we raise on our farm. Our mission at Stone City Farm is to produce high-quality, all-natural goat milk soap for people who want a fresh, unrefined, natural product. At Stone City Farms, we offer scented and unscented soaps and a signature line of gift sets customizable to your needs. To see what our customers are saying, go to StoneCityFarm.com. Use the code NATURAL for a 20% discount. That's StoneCityFarm.com, code NATURAL for 20% off your order. You never know what could be hiding in your soap.
Did you ever turn to your radio for your favorite talk show to find that it's been preempted for this?
In the air, to deep right center. Back goes Lewis to the wall, and it's all here!
Or this?
And I'm ashamed of you, Hillary, for voting for it.
Do you have a favorite talk radio program that's not available in your city? Just go to TalkStreamLive.com for links to the best streaming talk radio shows. At TalkStream Live, you will find live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All your favorites are here. With such a large selection, you will also discover some new favorites. On the go and still want to listen? With the mobile smartphone, simply type TalkStream Live on your internet browser. Now you can take internet radio with you. You will also find hundreds of music, news, and sports streams. Best of all, the TalkStream Live directory is free and there's never a login required. Remember TalkStreamLive.com, the fastest route between you and your favorite talk radio show.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. If we can't imagine, then we can't rebel, and we can't fight back. And then they win by default. That's the game we play. And that is from Gabriel. Tweeted out, and that is our Fade or Not family. They are smart. Words of wisdom, huh, John?
Yeah, terrific.
It's one of our listeners, man.
In fact, just to follow up on that, because I think it's a great comment, I started writing a series of articles maybe 2 years ago as words of advice for certain groups that were fighting back. This had to do with the GMO pesticide issue and labeling GMOs. It had to do with some other allied issues. And what I was basically trying to say was, look, you've got to use imagination here and devise ways of doing things that nobody has figured out yet. It's not enough to just go straight down the center of the road and say, okay, so we're going to have this ballot initiative about GMO labeling. That's fine. You want to do that, okay. But don't think that that's the end of things. You know, you've got to... See, my whole thing is to try to empower people to think of things that nobody's thought of before, you know, and to put them into action in their own lives, personally, for everybody's sake, the planet, whatever. You know, there are, if you just think about it for a second, of all the solutions that have been cooked up so far as to how we get out of this ridiculous reality that we seem to be pressured into living in, and you look at all the answers that have been offered and all the solutions and so forth, what fraction is that of all the possible solutions and answers that have not yet been dreamed up or imagined that could give us something that we haven't had before? And of course, the answer is clear. So resisting, fighting back, winning, all of these kinds of things require exactly what that comment was all about. People who say, well, wait a minute, let's sit down, you know, just a few of us here. We know what's been done already. That's fine. We know what's trying to be accomplished here to, you know, for the sake of better well-being and health and vitality or whatever on the planet. Okay, so are we going to just say we can't think of anything that hasn't been thought of yet? A different strategy, a different way of doing our kind of public relations on behalf of the truth? That we just have to go along with what everybody's thought of before, you know? And the answer, of course, is no. And I keep encouraging activists to look at that and consider it. And I make suggestions, and I've made suggestions and so forth as to what they could do. But it's really up to them. Because don't be fooled into thinking that we understand exactly how this revolution is supposed to proceed. We are inventing it, and we are imagining it, and that opens up the territory limitlessly. They're just, wow, whatever you can dream up.
And it's gotten to the point where I believe that our spirit is so broken in a broad sense that nobody wants to be that guy that imagines either. Right? He doesn't want to be the guy to think out the box. He doesn't want to be known as that guy, and he is in denial. Even if he was given a task and asked to, think outside the box, we've been so dumbed down with, not doing that we're chicken. And I really mean that. It's kind of come to that.
Yeah. It comes to show me somebody else that's climbed out of the box and maybe I'll follow them. That's about the best I could do. That would be sort of the optimum in heavy quotes.
Yeah. Oh, you want me to do what?
Right.
I'm kind of cool. You know what I mean? I'm kind of cool with my.
I know what you mean, Jimmy. I mean, I've been fighting this for 30 years. This war, exactly what you just said. I'm cool. Everything's okay. Is there something you want me to contribute a few bucks to, or is there a group you think I ought to look into? But my own imagination, dreaming up something that nobody ever, has thought of before. Well, but you see, under the surface, undercover, people are doing that all the time. You have people on your show who say, guess what? Here's a reality that has been ignored, avoided, suppressed, etc., and I'm going to show it to you now. And as soon as that happens, then what's going on is that thousands and thousands of people in the audience are hooking up their imagination. Okay, we're ready to go here. Let's just plug it in because this is going to be a ride I'm going to take here. Because if I don't do that, then it's not going to be interesting. This guy's going to say something really exciting, and I want to imagine it with him as he goes along. Okay. Well, if that's true, and it is, because what do you think is happening when you read a work of fiction? If your imagination is not being engaged, it's just dead words on the page. If that's true, then what about taking it to the level, which is the real level where you start it all yourself?
Yeah. Why is that? Because you can go up to somebody, and we've all done this, but you go up to somebody that is a little closed off, and you just want to push him just a little bit to go and have some fun and maybe laugh once in a while. And you're like, come on, dude, let's go do this right now. Let's go. And no, I'm going to go back to my cubicle. I got another report I've got to finish. And, no, dude, let's go to the lunchroom and let's make some root beer floats and let's rebel. Let's go do no, it's crazy how people are comfortable with that because that guy wasn't that guy once. He was willing to go and take a chance and take a 3-hour lunch and go have some fun, and I don't understand where this twist of fate has happened. I just don't get it. And it's frightening because I know that in our very soul, John, we're all made of the same thing. And we all want to change the world and we all want to be creative. We all want to write a song. We all want to paint that picture, that Monet, that you were talking about earlier. I don't know where we would be today. When I was a kid, I've told Rita this story, This is about 20 years ago, and I go to this art museum, 20 years ago. I was 25. I went to an art museum, and I went up to this Monet, which I actually have a print of over at the house. And I went up and looked at this picture, and instantly, inside of 10 seconds, I cried. It's something, I'm looking at it, and whatever he painted, whatever paint or whatever he was painting, it went right through me to my tippy toes. And my stomach went in knots, my stomach, my throat, and tears. And you know what? Where would the world be without that? That very thing. That is crazy to me, that we have stifled and crunched down imagination. The painters of the world. It's crazy.
It is completely crazy. No question about it. And also, we can now hook this up with the paranormal because, as I mentioned, I think on one of my Thursday night segments, I've interviewed people who have tested very well in laboratory experiments on the paranormal, and they have some very interesting things to say. And reading between the lines, you can see that they are using imagination to the hilt in order to do what they can do. For example, in telepathy. It isn't just, and now I see the thought that's going from the distance, galloping toward me, and blah, blah, blah. It isn't just that. It's to be able to imagine that you can do it, and then you can do it. This is where the children come in. Children get some idea in their head about what they can do. And if nobody blocks that and allows them free rein, all manner of very interesting paranormal things are possible, because that too is hooked up to imagination. Imagination is the engine that drives that. In other words, we're talking about levels of reality here. There is what we see when we look out the window. There's what we do every day that is repetitive. There is what the news tells us the politicians do, the people above the politicians do, as you were talking about before with, invented money and tax money and all of this kind of repression and so on and so forth. But there are these levels of reality that actually exist that go beyond that. Far, far beyond that, into what people tend to call the paranormal, whatever they may think of it. But in children, this is implicit. It's there. It's that sense of the greater drama on a larger stage. Children are always looking for that, because even though they delight in what's in front of them, they're cognizant that there is something greater. And how do they get there? They get there by first imagining it, and then they do it. And that is a thing, that's a very spiritual thing that everybody in this world has. And it tends to be leaked away and diminished and repressed over time. And then it's like, they forget. I thought that when I was 6 years old or 12, or gee whiz, that seems completely alien to me now that I'm ensconced in this workaday repetitive life.
And you could apply that across the board too, as well. Astral body, out of body, that whole side of the paranormal, as well as, I was about to name off 20 things. It doesn't even matter. But yes, exactly right. You could take that, and without imagination, that would be impossible. And,
right.
And certainly we all imagined doing it as kids as well. They go hand in hand.
Sure. And if the environment was such, the people around us were such that it was, openly permitted and, God forbid, even encouraged, who knows what would have happened? Who knows how many kids would have taken a quantum leap out of where they were into something more, which would then be made room for in society, because in this metaphor, we would be living in a different kind of environment, a different kind of world, where paranormal things would be acceptable. Of course, this happens, and it's terrific and wonderful. Levels of reality. Jump up onto another level of reality. Try to do that with imagination, and there is no staircase, there's no elevator, there's no nothing. It doesn't happen. So if you know that, if you can understand that and realize it, then you can start considering, for example, well, what's my future? It's unwritten, it's open space. I can invent that future. I can imagine it as the way I want it to be, and I can take steps in that direction. That would be a whole different life. And if we had 2 million people doing that right now, I'll tell you for sure, we would be living in a different world.
How can we change it?
Well, I think it's got to happen one individual at a time. I mean, we can get the message out to many people at once, as we're doing here, but this is the kind of thing where the individual has to take the reins, himself or herself. It's not to say that you have to be isolated in doing it. You can find allies and others who are on the same frequency as you are, who understand this kind of thing. And who knows what you can do with that. I mean, there have been group experiments in this before, and I have written about them. There was, for example, and some people will think this is a little creepy, but it really was quite normal. Just a quick sketch. There was a group in Canada, and these were just people, and they decided for the fun of it that they would sit around and have meetings, frequent meetings, where they would invent a character. And they gave this character a name. I don't remember what it was, but it was pretty simple, like Bob or something like that, And this was sort of, to use a word that a lot of people shy away from, but it was sort of conjuring. Let's just try this for the heck of it. It's kind of like the Ouija board and so forth and so on. And so they created this character. And for people, the character assumed a certain kind of life, a certain kind of existence. And it wasn't psychotic, it wasn't creepy, it wasn't weird, it wasn't satanic, it wasn't crazy, because all these people were sort of normal people. And they did this for a couple of years. And as a result, and there were after statements when they decided, okay, we finished the experiment, they all reported that they had an increased sense of well-being themselves as individuals. It was just an exercise that they did for the heck of it. Why not? Why not try this? It's kind of fun. It's sort of interesting. It wasn't like, oh, we're going to conjure up some evil spirit that will dominate us and all of that. That's all fear-based. That's all the kind of crazy stuff that people get into. This was just very above board. They would have no trouble talking about it to other people if they were interested. It was just fun. It was play, just the way kids will go out in a field and run around and invent invisible characters in their melodrama that they're staging to have a game, to have something to do, to have fun, and where does that kind of thing lead? Well, I can tell you it leads to tremendously positive effects if the kids are left alone to continue to do it in a friendly atmosphere. Use your imagination. There are just boggling numbers of levels of the paranormal that can be accessed through just this sort of thing, just through imagination.
I know that the Russians were big into this that was like a division of their Department of Defense for a long time. I'm not sure if that program still continues on an official level. I'm sure it does, just like it does here with the CIA and so forth. But is there a society out there besides Russia that is committed to not only this research but imagination?
No current society that I know of, I would say. like you say, there are secret experiments and so forth. But my sense of this is that even whether you're talking about Russia or anywhere else, the CIA and so forth, there's always this insane objective, that overrides the whole thing. The reason that we want to encourage this and do this is because then maybe we'll create something that we could use as a psychological operation against the enemy, or as a military weapon of some kind, or a spy, remote viewing and so forth. All of this was always couched in terms of the practical experiment that would lead to some sort of advantage over the others, whoever they were. So no, I don't see that because of the limitations that are always placed on this. Whereas if you really wanted to do this, there would be no limitations and there would be no agenda. We're not doing this in order to win World War III or dominate everybody else on the planet. That's not what this is for. This is for the opposite. This is for freedom. This is for individual power. This is for new realities that are created by imagination.
And you have the same thing with remote viewing as well, because it was like the space race, right? Well, they're doing it, so we've got to do. They're going to use it against us. We've got to get better than them. And imagination was allowed to run amok in those programs. Let's get this done, because if we don't, the other guy is going to be a better remote viewer than us, and they're going to be right here, inside of the Oval Office listening to conversations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've had some experiences myself where, I could see what was happening someplace else, but it wasn't with the objective of spying. It was just interesting. Well, okay. And, could confirm later on that was happening. But it was just, again, it's like, how do you get there? If you can't imagine it, you're not going to be able to do it. That's for sure. That's where it starts. It starts with solutions to problems that face society. It starts with art. It starts with education. It starts in every conceivable area. For instance, get down to something practical. I've written in the past about the war on poverty in the Great Society that started with Lyndon Johnson in 1966. And the estimates are $2 trillion, perhaps, that have been sent into inner cities in America to try to change life. And you look at the way things are now, how could it be that things are even worse in many areas, much worse than they were all that time ago? And of course, there are many answers to that, including where did the money actually go? That's a big one. But I look at, and I have over the years looked at certain projects that were initiated in inner cities. For example, and I think this is still going in Chicago, there are people who have taken over a building, a big building, and they do indoor urban farming to create beautiful, fresh, nutritious food. There's a guy in Los Angeles who does it on whatever scale he's doing it. And you think of the ripple effect of this. Somebody imagined it. Hey, what's the problem? We'll bring people into the community in here and we'll start urban farming on empty lots or in buildings and get the people in the community to learn how to grow fresh, nutritious food, and they will end up trading food with their neighbors, and everybody will get along better, and beautiful, wonderful, fabulous. Now, you could take, if you were the federal government and you had a scintilla of interest or imagination, for a tiny fraction of the waste of all that money that went into inner cities, and you could say as a president, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I think everybody will agree. In the next 3 years, we're going to build 1,000 of these or help people with a modicum of funding 1,000 of these in inner cities all over America. Fresh, nutritious food, vegetables, fruits, the whole 9 yards. It'll be a terrific project. Everybody likes this, right? No problem. Okay, here we go. And for a modest amount of millions of dollars to just kind of jumpstart it, as opposed to $2 trillion, all of a sudden you would change life in inner cities in a matter of a decade. Slam dunk.
Right.
No problem. It would be a totally different story. Well, that's just one, thing that imagination can do. Just one.
Do you remember, I think one of the best examples of imagination is the Apple Computers commercial they did, right? The George Orwell 1984 commercial they did for the 84 Olympics.
You bet.
And if you ever, talk about a statement, right? But it was also a vision of the future. And in a weird way, the Apple computer was trying to go with the free mind, right? If what the free mind, and IBM is Big Brother, right?
Right.
And we fell right into it. It actually ended up happening exactly how Apple, and it's pretty strange. Why? Because back then, Jobs and Steve Wozniak and what Apple was trying to represent was breaking away from the man, breaking away from the system, breaking away from Big Brother and IBM, and be a free thinker and have imagination. And this will be our box will be part of you, and it actually worked out that way because nobody loves Apple products more than an Apple consumer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it was that vision that Jobs had, that very vision, that imagination. And if we didn't have that, just imagine being in an IBM world today.
Whew, baby.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Crazy. By the way, Jack D. Ripper was, this is my memory kicking off, Sterling Hayden, my man.
Yeah.
Sterling Hayden. And I never, Sterling in that movie, from then on, every time I saw Sterling Hayden in other movies, I just thought of, Jack D. Ripper and Purity of Essence, right? Oh, I just remembered it. Purity of Essence.
Yeah, he said fluoridation was taking away our purity of essence, right? And everybody laughed and they thought it was very funny. And the weird thing about that movie, of course, it was about the A-bomb and dropping bombs in World War III. And as I mentioned on one of my Thursday reports, in fact, fluorides were the most serious health problem from the Manhattan Project that invented the A-bomb. And that's a whole long story that I told on one of the Thursday night reports, lawsuits, and that's how the whole issue of fluoride was engineered into being like, oh, it's great for your teeth and so forth. That was all to cover up the incredible toxicity from the A-bomb project, which was what that movie, Dr. Strangelove, was all about, right? And so when Sterling Hayden started talking about fluoridation, nobody made that connection. I don't know whether Kubrick was aware of it himself at the time, but it was quite ironic.
And fluoride was a byproduct. It was waste, and they needed to do something with it, and so and hopefully make money off of it. And that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, they did. It was a PR program to convince the American public, hey, we got this great thing for the health of teeth, especially children. And that was just a total put-up job. I mean, it had no reality whatsoever. Now, that's the dark side of imagination. That's when people are starting to imagine, okay, how can we screw everything up and make money in the process and protect ourselves from life terms in prison, right?
Our guest tonight, Jon Rappoport and Imagination. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'll be right back.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal God on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
KGRA Radio. Intelligent talk.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
If your home has hard water and it's leaving white spots, then it's likely that limescale is clogging your pipes. Limescale can cost hundreds of dollars a year in wasted energy and early appliance breakdown. HydroCare systems available at Wave Home Solutions prevent and remove limescale with just a simple filter change every 3 years. There are no salts, chemicals, or magnetic coils. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, just go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Hi, I'm Richard Dolan. When I'm not hosting my radio program, The Richard Dolan Show on KGRA, or writing new books on UFOs, I run a publishing company. I'm proud to say that Richard Dolan Press has published some of the most fascinating books available on UFOs and related subjects. They include Dr. Bruce Maccabee's classic analysis of the UFO cover-up, David Marler's breakthrough book on triangular UFOs, Dr. Richard Sauter's unique work on underground bases, and other classics by Grant Cameron, Chase Kletsky, and Dr. Bob Wood, not to mention intriguing works by Eve Lorgan and Laurie MacDonald that deal with truly bizarre phenomena. I'm proud to publish such high quality and original works, and there are several amazing books about to be released over the next few months. Go to richarddolanpress.com to learn more.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony. Damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Jon Rappoport. The Imagination presentation. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tomorrow night, Dr. Louis Torrey is going to be here. Not going to want to miss that. And, of course, Thursday night is Fader night. Open lines all night long with Jon Rappoport and his No More Fake Newsroom. I got to tell you, John, No More Fake Newsroom is like the hit. You know that, don't you? You've got the hit record.
It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. It's great to be able to do this.
Oh man, it's so much fun, and watching everybody's reactions out there, you know, different forums and the comments on YouTube and the emails that we get. People are picking up what you're putting down. All right,
that's great. I'm glad to hear it.
Now, let's kind of go here. I almost want to talk about George C. Scott and Buck Turgison, but Dr. Strangelove, we could do that all night. It's one of my favorite movies, by the way. But how can we have our audience here that is listening, and they get it, and they have imagination. They haven't let go of it. By the way, we started talking about Saturday morning cartoons, and Twitter blew up, right? They get it. But if you were speaking to an audience that doesn't get it, right, that is on that treadmill, that is a card-carrying member of the status quo, how would they recognize that they are in an artificial reality that was created for them, and they would be in denial? What would they look for?
Well, I have had that experience several times. in various venues when I used to do more live lecturing. And one thing I would do is I would remind them of what they were like as children, straight out. I would say, I know what you were like when you were 8 years old. And I would just lay it out. You played games, you made up stuff, and you weren't disappointed. You had tremendous fun. In fact, at times it was ecstatic. You were alive. You knew you were alive. What was that all about? And I would go into it, and get to the point of imagination. And then I would say, look, you come to a point in your life where you deny that and you bury it. And what happens to you after that is very different. And I would spell that out. So that's one of the things I would do. Go to the people's own experience because it's universal. It's undeniable. And they can remember. They can remember a time when they were 9 years old. And even later than that. What about the time when you had an idea that you thought could form the basis of something that you really wanted to do in life? And you woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you were on fire with it, and you walked to the window and you looked out over the town where you lived or the city or whatever, and you just felt this enormous space, because imagination and space are inextricably linked. And how did you feel then? What did you think? How were you projecting your own future and the possibilities that were just piling up on each other? And what happened to that? Where did that go? It's still there. It's still there. So, it would work with some people in the audience. I could see their reactions. But then there was another brand of people that I would call the professionals, the so-called hard-headed realists. I would just run this down. I would say, let's take the conventional physics approach to reality. Okay, what is that? The universe is made up of these tiny particles, whatever names you want to give them, and they move and they interact and they flow all according to laws that are unalterable. That's what's happening in the universe. And everything in your body, including your brain, is made up of those exact same particles. So that means there's no such thing as freedom or free will. How could there be? No such thing as choice.
Right.
No such thing as consciousness.
Right.
Because how could these little, according to conventional physics, nobody has found in any of these particles that they're alive or conscious or anything. They just move, right?
Right.
Okay, so then here we are, you and I. I'm talking to you right now. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do.
Of course you do.
Right.
So how is that possible?
It's
not that you think you understand it or that it's all an illusion and I'm just talking gibberish. And I'm not talking about processing information like a machine does. I'm talking about right here, right now, in this moment of time. You're there, I'm here, I'm talking, you understand me, I know you understand me, we're back and forth. What is that? That's being conscious of this moment in time, right now. Are you telling me that is derived from these little tiny particles that are completely without any consciousness at all? How is that possible? No, we're looking at something far different here. And you may not want to look at it or think about it or whatever, but as long as you concede that you are aware right now of what's happening, you're conceding something else is going on here that's beyond the material. And that's where we are. So let's confess to it, and start from there and see what that means. And that, I had an experience once with an audience where that really got through to them. I mean, they reacted to that.
Yeah, it's heavy. I feel like I'm smoking weed.
Yeah. Well, I think some of them felt that way too, because there it is, you know.
Right.
How are you going to jump? You're going to jump this way, or you're going to jump that way.
Right.
If you have freedom, what does that mean? People died for that concept. It was enshrined in certain documents and so forth, and that formed the basis of societies. Centuries were spent in trying to struggle and win this war, that the individual had the right, natural right to be free. And now you're going to come along and say that that was all in vain because it was just an illusion to begin with, that there couldn't be any such thing as freedom because we're just a bunch of atoms moving around, and so the whole thing was ridiculous? Is that what you want to say? And people get a kind of uncomfortable. Yeah, I never thought of that before. And, you know, okay, so let's admit there is this thing called freedom. You can do whatever you want to do here. Where does that come from? The atoms in your brain are creating freedom? That doesn't make any sense. Some other echelon of existence is operating here right now, you know, and then move from there to imagination. I've had some interesting experiences with that.
With tying this back into the space program, and go with me on this for a second. I want the audience to stay with me too as well. With the broad imagination and dreams about moon bases and Mars bases and Hilton hotels and satellites and exploring the universe, and we're just going to keep going and going and going, and we're just going to populate and just go. That fired off imagination beyond, you know, and that mood of the Earth was excited, right? And the power of that excitement was everywhere. Like you said, you could touch it in Long Beach. And today we don't have that. That's been curtailed. And do you think that globally, that cutting us off of that dream, you know, because we're not doing it, it would take tremendous amounts of money and funding and multiple administrations throughout the White House constantly funding, and go with me on this, to get that that size of a project off the ground, and now it has been completely cut off and stifled. Do you think that cutting us off of that dream is screwing with the world globally?
Big time. Big time. I'll tell you a couple brief things about that. I believe that, let's call it the 1980 election, maybe presidential election.
Was that Reagan?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the one after Star Wars came out, that if a presidential candidate, whatever, Reagan, whoever, said, here's the deal, folks, we're going into space. We're going to do it. However we have to do it, domed colonies, whatever, and I'll talk about that in a second. We're going to do it because that's what everybody wants. And guess what? There's going to be full employment. Full employment. Because we're not just talking about one administration. We're talking about 100 years, you know, easy. This whole thing is going to build up steam and is going to involve more and more people at every level of skill, imagination, talent, whatever. Everybody works. Nobody's unemployed on this planet because this is just going to be norms. This is where we're going. This is the next step. So let me segue from that quickly into a friend of mine who went to the opening premiere in Hollywood of Star Wars at 11 o'clock in the morning, and I think it was on a weekday. And she came back and she said to me, and I mean, nobody was prepared for this. She said when the words went up on the screen at the beginning of the first showing, and whatever it was, in a galaxy far, far away, et cetera,
right,
a huge roar went up in the theater in Hollywood. People went crazy right then.
Emotions.
Right then, imagination just went and hooked up into feelings and went nuts.
Right.
Before the first image of the actual movie went on the screen.
They didn't even know what Star Wars was about.
They had no clue.
Yeah, right.
And this was it. I mean, everybody was tuned to that as late as whatever that was, 1977. So here's a guy you should have on if you can connect with him. I haven't been able to reach him in years. Ted Clark, Theodore Clark, worked at JPL, Jet Propulsion Labs, in Pasadena. He was a main principal figure in the Jupiter probe. Hard scientist. I think it was his work was in instrumentations, whatever. And when I was working freelance in LA as a writer, somebody told me about him. I called him up. He said, yeah, come on over to my house and we'll talk and you can do an interview and publish it. Sure, great. And he lived in this place out in Altadena in this old house and grounds and whatever. We got into his house and he started talking and he said, you know, I conduct tours to Greece. I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, it's all about showing people what the Renaissance in Athens was in ancient Greece and how this was a giant leap ahead for humankind at that time. And he said, that's what it's all about. I want to show people what that's like to go there and to look at what these architects and philosophers and poets and playwrights and even political scientists, in a sense, and historians were doing that was so different from anything that went before. He said, because we're there now again. We're there now again. And he started talking about hotels in space. And, you know, he said, it's possible. He said, we've got the beginning of the technology to do that if we want to. And I said, and he said, so, how did he put it? He said, so what's the thrill of doing that? He said, the same as on any vacation. It's the view. The view. That's what you're selling. And people look out and they see the sunrise and set and pop. And then he said, here's a real space program. 10,000-year program. You've got domed colonies. You mine the asteroids. You build these domed colonies. And you send them out on a gravity assist, boom, beyond the solar system. There's a planet that's somewhere near Bernard's star where we think there could be life or it would be habitable. And the whole idea is that these colonies with their people rendezvous there in 10,000 years. He said, now you're talking about a space program. Now, this is a hard scientist at JPL talking to me from the Jupiter probe.
Right.
And the hair was up on the back of my neck. I mean, I was like twizzling and tingling from head to toe. This guy was inspiring, man. He was there. He was one of those, you know, Long Beach people. And the country at that time was ready for that kind of thing. And it was cut off exactly as you said. And it resulted in what I would call a subclinical humanity depression as a result, because that dream was cut off, curtailed, and put on the shelf. And nothing has been the same since then.
And why is that? I obviously, it starts in Washington. It starts there and trickles down, and we have corporations and money and employment and the machine and the cabal and whoever else you want to point fingers at. But why is it that they can't sustain it in Washington and just get those programs to be repetitive and self-funded and fully funded?
Again, you know, I have to go back to this primal fear that some people have of imagination and what would happen if you let it loose in society.
Well, let me make this statement. If and this is not mine, it's not original, but it came from a family member. But it shook me one day, and he said, "Look, man, if we are alone in the universe, that is much more frightening for us here on Earth than finding out that we're not alone. Because if we find out that we're alone and we have nothing to live for, then that is anarchy in the streets. Because there's nothing to do. Right? And if we kicked it in the other direction and chose to explore, then or go out and find, that is something to live for. That's that 10,000-year program that you're speaking about. And if I'm a politician, if I'm the head of the United Nations, if I'm president if I'm POTUS, then I would be a hero if I suggested such a thing and put that into an executive order that it can never be unfunded, right?
I agree with you. I'm on the same page as you are. That's the way I would think. But again, you get this desire to control. We've got to control what we've got here, and we've got to make it all uniform and standardized and all of that, the status quo, what we started talking about at the beginning. That's for some people who rise up into positions of power, the safer bet. That's the bet that they make. It's like the person who says, I want to stick with what I've got. That's my game.
I'm cool with that. Right.
I'm cool with that.
Right.
I've got what I've got, and I'm going to stick with it. I've got my MO. It works. And I don't want to hear about anything else. That's those people. That's the way they are.
You remember, and I know I'm kicking, a dead horse here, but, once you set a goal, and certainly in 1960, 61, 62, 63, those goals were set. We're going to the moon, right? And that's it. No ifs, ands, or buts. That's what we're going to do. The goal was set, and allegedly we went there. That's a whole other show. I would love to do a show with you on the Apollo moon hoax. But we got there. 1969, done, right? An insurmountable, impossible thing. We left Earth and went to another planet. Right? Crazy in 6 years, right? And we managed to get through Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo, testing, astronauts, training, logistics, the technical hurdles, and landed on the moon in 6 years, right? It was just a goal. I'm sorry, John, today, it couldn't happen. As a matter of fact, it just wouldn't. It couldn't happen. It just could not and would not happen. We're talking now. Do you remember what Obama said 8 years ago? We're going back to the moon. Remember? And I thought to myself, what do you mean going back? That's not a goal. We've already been there. And look, we're no more closer to that in 8 years. What Johnson and Kennedy and Nixon pulled off in 6. And we're still landing our capsules in the ocean, right? We've stopped the space shuttle program. The space shuttle program was our last glimmer of the dream.
Yeah. Again, I agree. You get someplace, the next thing is we're going further. But I agree, it would never happen now because the dream has been stifled. It hasn't been nurtured. It's, take it back to a child again. The child has unlimited imagination. If the parent stifles that and forces it underground, then you get a perversion. Now you're in a situation of control. Who's controlling who? Who's the master? Who's the slave? Who's free? Who isn't? All of those kinds of things that go back and forth on planet Earth that are completely insane. And you can do that to a country. You can do that to a planet. You can take the biggest, most adventurous, imaginative collective dream of, say, space flight and journey into space. And and the dream doesn't die, but you can stifle it in a way that people will just give it up in terms of the practical doing of it. No, that's not going to happen. We're not going to do that. But there was a time, like I said, and I knew it in my bones, that if somebody emerged from the pack and said, look, we're living in a technological society, and it's quite fantastic what we've been able to do. And we're going to do more, and that more is going to be going into space. That's what we all want to do, and that's what we're going to do. And everybody works. Everybody's got a job. Everybody contributes. Everybody's on fire. Everybody's inspired. That's it. This is stage 2 of planet Earth. We reached this point in stage 1. Stage 2 is we're getting off the planet. For real. Long range, long term, far. We're going far. We're going far, far, far. And, you know, you start to think about, well, what does that look like if you succeed? What it looks like is the wet dream of every libertarian. You've got so many societies out there that have been populated in space that there's absolutely no way to control their evolution and what they do and what happens and what choices they make. You just can't do it. You can't say, oh, well, this galaxy here is completely headquartered in Washington, D.C., you know? It's just not going to work. After a certain point, you get out far enough where people are going to do what they're going to do on their own. And they're going to succeed in a myriad ways that you can't even predict. They're going to live through and by imagination. For real.
We're going to be headed towards a break here. Can I get you to hang on for a few more minutes?
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to open up the phone lines. I've never done that with you, John, I don't think before, but I'm going to open up the phone lines. 323-825-5045. You've got a million fans out there. I'm sure we'll be able to pack in a few calls really quick. But there's another thing that I want you to think about during the break, and we can dance on it right now. What would happen if we've got 10,000 people on a ship, right? Now it's a city, and everything would have to be sort of regulated just like we have it here. I'm sure we would have to have some type of police force. We would have to have some kind of government. We would have to have, it just wouldn't be people in hotel rooms, right? You would have to have some kind of organization there. But what do you think would happen throughout that traverse of space? Do you think there would be revolution? Do you think there would be a government overthrow? Do you think people would go on strike? Do you think there would be some riots? Do you think there would be a form of capitalism? Do you think there would be black markets? What do you think would happen? Because with the gravity or lack of, I should say, or the way that the brain works in space would be different. How do you think humans would change? And I want you to think about that during the break, and I want your answer when we come back. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Jon Rappoport and the Imagination presentation. I'm going to open up the phone lines, too. 323-825-5045. We'll sneak in a couple of calls. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. More with Jon Rappoport right after this short break. Stay with us.
And you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
Hey, I'll make you a deal. Give me 60 seconds and I'll give you directions to the Fountain of Youth. Okay, I'm joking. Well, kind of joking. No fountains, but youth, I got. Nature's Youth and their premier anti-aging product, Nature's Youth RSF. With your sensible diet and exercise plan, Nature's Youth RSF can help you look and feel better. RSF is an all-natural amino acid supplement that supports your body to naturally increase HGH levels without any synthetic hormones. And elevated HGH levels can contribute to increased energy, improved libido, reduced body fat, and improved exercise capacity. Let's be honest, who doesn't want to look and feel younger? Visit the newly designed website at naturesyouth.com or call 800-333-6923. That's 800-333-6923, and like them on Facebook, and you'll be included in contest and exclusive offers. What a deal. Oh, speaking of deals, my time's about up. 800-333-6923 or naturesyouth.com. Who needs a fountain anyway? Call today.
What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring 2 Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hardshell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The 2 full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129, and use the promo code JCRTWS, and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Teppy.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. You can follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox. Email is Jimmy at JimmyChurchRadio.com. Just make it good. You don't want to go in the spam folder. Our guest tonight's Jon Rappoport, and it is our imagination presentation special. Fascinating conversation. Let's go to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black.
Hello, Jimmy.
Hello. Who's calling?
Why, it's your favorite girl that's named for a holiday.
That would be Christmas?
Well,
that would be Valentine's Day?
Christmas.
Thanksgiving?
Christmas.
What have you got for Jon Rappoport? Welcome to the show.
This is Bev.
I know Bev.
Oh, okay. Well, I just wanted to make a comment to him about, kids nowadays, we are so tech savvy now. Kids don't hardly have imaginations.
Okay, so it's a comment. What do you think about that, John? And it's almost sad. I made this comment. Somebody sent me a picture of a tour group of like junior high kids at an art museum, and behind them on the wall is like I'm just gonna make something up. It's something crazy like The Last Supper, right? Right? It's just some crazy, beautiful piece of artwork. And in front of it is a couch with like 6 girls, 12 years old, all faces in their cell phones.
Oh, geez.
And there you go. Hey, Bev, thanks for the phone call.
Well,
I think that's right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bev. Yeah, what do you think about that? Too tech savvy and imagination is gone.
There is a certain kind of imagination, of course, in video games and all of that. But at the same time, when it's all tech and it's all hooked into tech, and it isn't as free-ranging as it would ordinarily be, because everybody's hooked up to the glowing screen like a moth, then you got a problem. It's true. It's a real problem, and kids have to be shaken out of that, and it's not an easy thing to do. But it has to start earlier than when they have their own cell phones. The imagination has to bloom before the tech sets in and takes over, because I'll tell you, it's no contest. When a kid really has his own imagination and compares that to what he's going to get off of a cell phone, it's no contest. He's going to go with his own imagination, but he's got to know he has one first.
And then the other part of it that I find fascinating is the imagery that is in video games today, and the creativity that is done there is mind-blowing, and it sucks you in, and you see the imagination playing out from a young mind, as opposed to somebody that was, my age trying to do a video game. Boring, right? It just probably wouldn't have it. But there is the vision that young mind has to create some of these visual scapes that happen in gaming today that is just absolutely incredible. And some of it comes from a very dark place, too. There's so much Armageddon type of where the worlds are grays. You know what I mean? They are sepia tone visions of a nightmare kind of thing that goes on there too as well. And that's a statement of society today. That is what they see, and that's what they see the future as. So my question before the break, which was, same problems on that ship for 10,000 years that we go through in society today?
Yes, some of them, but I have to say, when you're that far out in space, and you know it because you see it all around you, and you're out of the gravity well, and your mind is operating at a different level, the kind of reshuffling and even revolution that those enclosed societies can undergo, my sense is they would be different. It's not just going to be the haves versus the have-nots and the masters versus the slaves. Everybody is going to be pumped up with the vision of where they are and where they're going. And that's going to change the nature of how these societies evolve over several thousand years. I don't think it's going to be just a replay of what we've seen in Earth history. I think it's going to be different, and I think it's going to be better in the long run. It's going to be more elevated. It's going to have more inspiration attached to it.
You don't think the possibility of after, they're going to be traveling for 10,000 years, right? The first year goes by, and then the breakdown starts to happen.
Yeah. I can understand that, but at the same time, I think it's going to evolve out of that, because I do think that when people get over that feeling of strangeness, I'm not there on Earth anymore, I'm out here in space, when they really begin to appreciate the immensity of the whole adventure.
Right.
Then the thinking process and the imagination and everything begins to transform. If I were writing the screenplay, that's the way I would write it.
The two ships arrive, right? And they do their rendezvous. One is empty, right? Everybody's dead.
Right. They didn't make it, right?
Yeah, one is utopia, and everybody is cool. And, that would be an interesting study in consciousness and how, like I said, would there be, no matter how you go through the vetting process, right? To get the crew together, 10,000 people, and you're going through these exams and everything, that you get out there and you're going to have one guy that wants to make money and he's selling food in the black market or whatever. I don't know. And then eventually I could just see it. You know what? I just don't dig the governor, man. We need to take him out of power. And that there's going to be there has to be some type of judicial system. Are they going to have laws that could be broken or not? Somebody caught stealing? I don't know. But would all of those things that affect society today eventually surface And that ugliness that it's inevitable, that it's in our DNA, and that we can't change.
No, I don't believe that. I do think that some of these things you're talking about would surface, yes, but that's not the end. In the same way, everything that I've researched and looked at in terms of what's going on planet Earth and in people's psychology and consciousness tells me, frankly, that the same thing is true of planet Earth. That there's going to come a time when enough people do wake up to realize that whatever destruction has been visited so far on the planet is going to undergo a transformation. It's not just going to be, there's nothing we can do about it, the DNA is final, nothing can happen. I don't believe that at all. I don't think that's the future, the long-term future.
Do you think a murder could be committed on that ship?
Sure, absolutely. I think there would be. I think lots of ugly things would happen. But is that the end? In other words, do people say, oh, well, see, what do we even go out here for? It's no different. It's just the same. No, I don't think so. It would be in the context of we're on a 10,000-year voyage. Okay. That we cannot deny, right. Because we look out the window and we can see where we are. That's going to change the process of consciousness. That is not going to be the final word. Oh, well, we're just like we were back then. We're hopeless. Let's all kill ourselves or blow it up or whatever. No, I don't think that's the way it works out.
And, the awful thought of, man, I cannot stand that person, man, but I can't get off this ship. Right?
Yeah.
And you're stuck.
That's a tough one. No question about that, too. Yeah. I mean, nobody said it would be easy. It's not like you get on the ship or the colony and, the music plays and everything is solved.
Right.
No. But neither has the history of Earth been that way. But yet things have happened here on this planet that are absolutely fantastic.
I think we have a screenplay to write. There's something developing here.
Yeah,
let's go to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black.
Yes, very thought-provoking. The late Paul Kantner talked about hijacking the starship. And maybe there's so many things I could talk to you about, John, but this has been very thought-provoking. The type of person that goes on this ship, I would like to hope, would be we'd have a drive system that wouldn't take thousands of years. And yet we'd still bring our culture with us. But I guess what I wanted to ask you is, what about, you're not a doctor, but what about autistic individuals? And some people say, well, this is brought on by vaccination. And others say, well, it's all the pollutants. But with all this unexplained DNA that we've recently found in all the human species, do you think that some of these autistic individuals, are they just ill and malfunctioning, or are they picking up something on different levels, and are they the future?
Okay, well, that's a big question. My answer basically is no, I don't think that they are the future. But it is true that some of these individuals do pick up on other things. Absolutely, yes. They access different areas of their own consciousness. But at the same time, I'm convinced that damage has been done, however you attribute the cause, and that it's a terrible thing. Because I don't think it requires the damage in order to access other parts of consciousness. And we've seen historically that that's the case. I mean, we see individuals who have made tremendous breakthroughs, but it was not because they suffered, pollutant damage in order to get there. So that would be my short answer to that question.
Well, and the other thing that you've been mentioning all night is imagination. And it would seem to me that, there's so many starving art students. I mean, it's an industry where I live. They have a couple of art colleges that seem to make a profit because, of course, everybody wants to create. And it makes me wonder if imagination needs to be honed. You know what I'm saying? You need to have training. It's good to dream. I was a good daydreamer in school, and I have a pretty high IQ. But until it's honed into taking action and into completing what you've dreamed up, it's not worthless, but it's kind of in the cloud. It doesn't go anywhere.
I agree. No question about it. At the same time, and this has been in the back and the front and the side of my mind for a long time, is to actually start a school of imagination. And the point would be, to reflect what you just said, to encourage and stimulate each individual's own imagination to the fullest degree possible, and yet at the same time offer a kind of education that develops, let's call it, the medium through which imagination can be expressed, whatever that may be. But yet, I also come back to one of the points I made earlier, that for every individual on the planet, there is the possibility of this question: what is my future? What future do I want? And not to extend this too long, but I used to do tutoring with students, and I had a student once who was, 6, 7 years behind, could barely read, and I was supposed to be his remedial tutor. He was kind of, a sharp kid in a way, but zero skills of any kind that I could notice. I worked with him for a while, and 4 or 5 years later, somebody from his family contacted me and said he had suddenly decided there was an area that he wanted to go into that was going to be his future. It involved a certain kind of work. And within 3 years, he had finished high school, and he was inspired, and he did the training, and he became what he wanted to become, and he was happy, and everything changed for this kid. So there are ways of accessing skills and intelligence beyond what we ordinarily assume once the person makes that decision. Yes, this is what I imagine. This is the future I want, and I'm going to do what's necessary to get there. I agree with you. That part is absolutely essential. It's not just I'm dreaming in the clouds.
Yeah, I think that, and Neil Young's son, Benjamin? I think he fits that category, but he's become a great sound engineer. Well, John, everybody in chat room loves you. We love you when you come on every week. You're stimulating. Jimmy made a good choice, and we'll be listening in the future. Thank you for having a discourse with me.
Thank you, Dino. All right. He actually, all good points, but he touched upon one thing that I don't think has been talked about, John. And again, this is a whole nother show, but just briefly, is there any studies into I know we're talking about imagination, but about autism that is because of the way that it's surfaced so quick? Obviously, we've seen Vaxxed and we've talked about this enough. But what about the other side? Is there a possibility that DNA and our genes may have been altered somewhat, that it's possible that this could turn into something hereditary, or that it is hereditary? Is there any studies about children born to autistic individuals or couples? Has that happened? And is there and what has happened with those children? Is there any of that right now?
If there are studies, I'm not aware of them. There might be, but I would think it would be pretty scanty. So I really don't have any information on what happens there or what could happen. I really don't know.
Yeah, because, at the turn of the century, when we're looking at autistic numbers, they were none, right? Whatever it was small, 1 in 50,000 or whatever. And then, today it's 1 in 60. And 10 years from now, if we stay on the same ramp, as the data, it's going to be 1 in 2, right? That's a frightening thought. But certainly, there seems to be some kind of the possibility of a mutation. That's all. I'm just wondering about that, and where are we going to be 50 years from now with this autistic generation and their children?
That's a big question. I don't know, but I feel like the damage, whatever the damage is, and it's not the same in every case. I mean, it's not exactly the same thing, is reversible. We may not know yet how to do it on a wholesale basis, but I know of cases where reversal of damage has taken place in a rather astonishing way.
Right.
So I don't give up on that.
Well, wow, what a fantastic, unbelievably stimulating show tonight. And I'm watching the reactions of everybody to my right and to my left, and they all thank you. Thank you so much. Just absolutely stimulating. It was imagination.
It was imagination. Thank you, Jimmy. This has been really terrific. I really enjoyed this one, boy.
Yeah, I'll send you a bill because, I feel like we've both been on the couch tonight. Thank you so much, my brother.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you so much. Jon Rappoport, everybody. And again, his website is nomorefakenews.com. It needs to be your first stop every single day. John said, I think he said it to me or maybe it was on a show, but when he found out that he didn't have to go to an editor to get his stories approved and his writing, and back in the day it was how do I say this? A 1 month process to getting your stuff into print and then getting a page and then turning around and figuring out word processing in his website where he could get thoughts out and publish in the same day, and that changed everything for him. So again, nomorefakenews.com. It's absolutely amazing. As he gets the thoughts out, it goes straight out onto his website. It's one of the best. All right, now check this out. I got to hit you guys with this, and I'm running out of time. According to the United Nations World Tourism Organization, it's called UNWTO, by the way, France is the world's most visited country. I get that, right? Various surveys consistently place Paris among the world's 5 most visited cities, but don't expect to see the Eiffel Tower or any other French landmark on TripAdvisor's most recent list of what it calls the world's most beloved landmarks. Now listen to me and follow me on this. You're not going to find the Statue of Liberty, Great Wall of China, the Great Pyramid, the Sphinx, not even the Grand Canyon on this list. Number 10, the Milan Cathedral in Milan, Italy. Number 9, the Lincoln Memorial Reflecting Pool in D.C. Number 8, the Alhambra in Granada, Spain. Number 7, the Church of the Savior on Split Blood in St. Petersburg, Russia. Number 6, the Mosque Cathedral of Cordoba in Cordoba, Spain. Number 5, the Taj Mahal in India. Number 4, St. Peter's Basilica at the Vatican. Number 3, Angkor Wat in Cambodia. Number 2, the Sheikh Zayed Grand Mosque in Abu Dhabi. And number 1 in the world, are you ready? Machu Picchu in Machu Picchu, Peru. Now, totally trippy, huh? Okay, so you got 2 through 10. You've only heard of 2 of them. Number 1, Machu Picchu, but not the Great Sphinx, not the Great Wall of China. No, not the pyramids, not Giza, not even the Parthenon, Greece. Pretty trippy, I thought. In 1998, a Russian Proton rocket flew the Zarya module up into orbit, the first piece of what would become the International Space Station, or the ISS. Now, John and I were talking about this earlier tonight. Now, check this out. 17 years later, after playing host to 15 and a half years of continuous human habitation for astronauts from 18 different countries, the ISS has just completed its 100,000th orbit around Earth. NASA announced the milestone yesterday, explaining that The 2.6 billion miles it has traveled is equal to 10 round trips to Mars. Yeah, and we still haven't left Earth's orbit. Oh, man, where did imagination go, right? Let's see. There was a few other things. Oh, I got to get this one's for Dino. Magic mushrooms could cure patients with severe depression. Magic mushrooms, yes, I said it on the air, could cure patients with severe depression after British scientists discovered a compound in the Class A drug which appears to work where conventional therapies have failed. A pilot study at Imperial College London's Department of Medicine saw 12 patients given psilocybin, a compound found in magic mushrooms. You know what I'm talking about, right? But the drug itself is illegal in the UK. The clinical trial found 2 doses of psilocybin were enough to lift depression in all 12 volunteers for 3 weeks. 7 patients continued to show positive response at the 3-month mark, while 5 of those patients were still in remission after 3 months. Magic mushrooms. Now, hey, I'm not condoning. Don't go there. I was just surprised they're still around. Can you buy those? Can you, go to a magic mushroom dealer? Where would you go? If you needed magic, you go to Tor, probably. Go to the deep web. I mean, where would you buy magic mushrooms today? Back in the day, you went to the local, record shop. The guy behind the counter selling the bongs, and the place smelled like incense. That was your magic mushroom hookup, right? I've only heard the rumors. A French weapons manufacturer is developing a stratospheric airship dubbed the Stratobus that would act as a high-altitude eye in the sky for government agencies around the world. Now, check this out. A $17 million grant from a French government investment program will go towards and the company is called Thales Alenia Space, described as a vehicle halfway between a drone and a satellite. Now, it kind of looks like a small Goodyear blimp. That's what it looks like. But solar panels are going to generate power for the ship's electric propulsion system, allowing it to maintain a stationary position against winds of up to 90 kilometers per hour. Now, check this. It's got an operational lifespan of 5 years. It's going to hang 20 kilometers above the Earth's surface, offering a view range of 500 kilometers for 5 years. I want to thank the one and only Jon Rappoport. Absolutely fascinating discussion tonight. Doesn't get any better than that. And I'm sure you're going to listen again, and you should. Thank you, John. Absolutely perfect show. And that's why I love doing Fade to Black every single night, because that was a trip. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Kamarian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Mark D. Kovar, LJ3, Renee. Happy birthday, Mark Dunbar, Jonas, Dennis, and Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Happy birthday, Mark Dunbar. Fady by Dale. Webmasters Drew the Geek. Happy birthday, Mark Dunbar. Music is Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Happy birthday, Mark Dunbar. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. Syndication is KGRA The Planet. Happy birthday, Mark Dunbar. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2016 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Happy birthday, Mark Dunbar. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Everybody be safe. Go Beckley Teppy.